All right, what is going on, iCoach Nutrition family? Hope everybody had an amazing weekend and having an even better start to the week here with Monday kicking things off. So today's podcast is going to be all about how to buy healthy food quickly. Okay, the majority of the food that we should be buying when we go grocery shopping should, in theory, be healthy food, right? But it's very easy to take that and take a grocery cart there and end up walking out of the grocery store with more quote unquote unhealthy food in comparison to healthy food. There's nothing wrong with having some foods that maybe aren't the healthiest for us. That's what finding balance is all about. Not every single food that you need to eat has to be healthy, but if we were to break it down, if I was to look at a grocery cart, in a perfect or more ideal or optimal situation, about 80% of the food that's in that grocery cart should be healthy food. It should be nutritious food, right? And maybe 20% of it would be food that is maybe not as healthy. But finding kind of that balance is ultimately what we're all striving for here. And I think if you look at the stats, right, by 2024, America is supposed to be at about a 50% obesity rate. So I would argue that most people, when they're walking out of a grocery store, if they're even walking out of a grocery store, they're not walking out with healthy food, right? And if they are, it's definitely not 80% of their cart, right? Maybe it's 20% of their cart with 80% of it being unhealthy, right? So 20% being healthy, 80% being unhealthy. So how do we buy healthy food quickly? The best way to think about buying healthy food quickly is focusing on the things that are healthy, right? And being able to learn and navigate the grocery store, depending upon which grocery store you go to, in a quick manner, right? And so obviously that takes reps. You got to get more comfortable and more confident with your routine and with your systems. But going into the grocery store with a list and with a plan, that would be the best way to go about it. I'll be honest, I don't really ever shop with a grocery list. Most people don't really make a plan in terms of going into the grocery store. So if that's not you, that's okay. You can get more comfortable and more confident as time goes on. But as the saying goes, failure to plan is planning to fail. So if you're not somebody that's comfortable with this, then I would highly advise and encourage you to make a list before venturing out and trying to make this happen here. All right, but when we think about healthy food, what is healthy food? Healthy food should be the majority of your food being whole foods, right? So this should be meats, seafoods, vegetables, fruits, right? Things that are actually like whole food format, right? And so if we think about this, this would be mainly, like I said, meat, seafood, vegetables, and fruits. And so there are other things that you can use in terms of like carbohydrates and fat sources. You're going to get some fat, right, from your meats and seafood. You're also going to get some carbohydrates from your vegetables and fruits. But, we're not talking about processed, refined carbohydrates here. We're not talking about, fats that are coming in the form of, things like cookies and cupcakes and brownies and all that type of stuff. So the best way, the easiest way to think about, what is healthy food, think to yourself, it's whole foods, right? And so what that format is going to look like, it's going to be mainly vegetables, fruits, meats, seafoods, nuts, seeds. And then, from a carbohydrate standpoint, outside of the traditional, like non-starchy vegetables and fruits, we would then also include things like, potatoes, right? Those could be a great actual carb source there. When we're thinking about the iCoach plate, that could be a great quarter plate carb source there. Those vegetables are higher in carbohydrates, right? So if I was to go into the grocery store, the first thing I'd recommend is go to the fresh produce section, right? Find your vegetables and fruits. Pick out the vegetables that you enjoy, that you actually know how to cook, that you actually want to cook, that you want to be able to incorporate into some of your meals and some of your recipes into this week. Same thing with the fruit, right? Go find and pick out the fruits that you actually enjoy, that you'll actually eat, that you can actually incorporate into your system of cooking for the week there, right? And when you think about this, in order for them to not go bad, it's not a bad idea to buy both frozen and fresh. A lot of people complain about buying fruits and vegetables and them going bad, right? And so if you buy them frozen, they're flash frozen. So, to be honest, depending upon who you're talking to, you could argue that they're actually healthier than fresh in terms of the micronutrient profile and not having, some of these pesticides and, contaminants there on the foods themselves. So both fresh, both frozen, they're both recommended. There's not, one that you should avoid by any means there. But venture out and say, hey, maybe I'm going to get 3 to 5, right? Fresh vegetables and frozen vegetables. And I'm going to get 3 to 5 fresh fruits and frozen fruits. Right? And maybe that's not something that you have to do every single grocery shopping trip. But if you have the frozen, if you run out of the fresh, well, then there you go. Right. Now you're not out completely. You can just simply transfer it over from the frozen to the fresh there. And some of the frozen you might even be able to just go ahead and use in terms of like, microwaving it or sauteing it or roasting it. And so you might not even have to transfer it over there at all. Okay. Same thing with the fruit, being able to make like smoothies and things like that. So start with vegetables and fruits first. Vegetables and fruits are the number one thing you need to prioritize, right? Getting in as many micronutrients into your diet as you possibly can, AKA getting in as many vitamins and minerals into your diet as you can. That's the most important aspect of nutrition, right? I would argue that most people do not consume enough vegetables and fruits in their diet. So start with that first, okay? I like kind of the 3 to 5 just because it's very simple, right? It's very easy, okay? From there, let's go pick meat and seafoods, right? It's the same thing. Maybe you can do fresh and frozen here as well, right? Maybe you pick 3 to 5 different meats, 3 to 5 different seafoods. If you're not much of a seafood person, that's fine. Just stick with the meats, but ultimately we need to get protein sources. Some other protein sources like outside of the meats and seafoods that could be great options would be things like eggs. It could be things like, like Greek yogurts. It could even be things like, protein powder or protein bars there potentially if you don't have any of those. Obviously, these are going to be more processed, but these can definitely help in terms of adding more protein intake into your day without just having meat and seafood. And then from there, you can start to incorporate some of these other whole foods, which should be like nuts and seeds. Now, again, nuts and seeds are whole foods, right? Not all of them, but most of them, right? We're talking about nuts and seeds that aren't sitting here, lathered on with all these different like seasonings and salts and caramels and things like that, chocolate covered. We're not talking about that. We're just talking about like nuts and seeds that don't have anything else on them, right? They're in their whole food format. But even with that said, even though they're great quality, it's really easy to get in trouble in terms of over consuming calories when it comes to nuts and seeds. So you always need to be paying attention to, and this is with everything, understanding both the quality and the quantity of the food, but especially with things like nuts and seeds and making sure you're checking, okay, what is the serving size, right? And let me stick to the serving size rather than just, taking handfuls out of the bag. And before you know it, you've thrown down 1,000 calories worth of cashews there, right? And then the other piece would be like in the carbohydrate standpoint of things. So things like, sweet potatoes, regular potatoes. You could even incorporate, other things there as well, like, beans and lentils, right? Those are going to be great whole food carbohydrate sources. You can also, look into things like, quinoas and different rices. These are all going to be a little bit more processed there, but again, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. The majority of your carbohydrates, the big takeaway here is that the majority of the carbohydrates you consume should be vegetables and fruits, right? And so every time that I go to the grocery store and every time that I help clients kind of build out their grocery shopping list, one thing that I would encourage them with is to focus on this order, right? If you want to think about how do I buy healthy food quickly, go into the grocery store, get your vegetables, get your fruits, get your meat, get your seafood, right? And then from there, if you want to get some nuts and seeds, if you want to get some different carbohydrate sources, awesome, go for it. But that should make up 80% of your groceries. And if there's anything else that you want to throw into the mix, maybe you want some ice cream, or maybe you want, cookies, or whatever it is that you want to get, then awesome, that should be the 20%. All right, because if you buy it and you put it in your house, you're going to eat it, right? So we're a product of our environment. We're a product of what we buy at our grocery stores. So if you want to be able to live a healthy lifestyle, you need to be grocery shopping and buying the majority of your food healthy food, healthy whole foods, right? You should be cooking the majority of your food should be healthy, whole foods. What you put into your body is what you get out of your body, right? So if you want to feel your best, look your best, perform your best, you need to be making sure that you're prioritizing eating healthy food. All right. So I hope this helps. Want to keep this super short. If you have any questions, as always, be sure to drop them below. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this, whether you're on the podcast, I Coach Nutrition Radio, in the Facebook group, on YouTube, wherever you are. I appreciate you. Thank you for taking the time. And until next time, thanks, guys. Have a great day.